G'day, I'm Scott Poynton, and I've got Sam Ashworth here with me today behind the camera. How are you, Sam?
Very good, thank you.
Yeah, so we just recorded a presentation around presentation skills, using particularly PowerPoint and how to do that. And the early part, I encourage you to look at that because the early part of that presentation around confidence, preparation, what you wear, all of those things hold very much for what we're going to talk about here. And what I want to talk about here is making presentations without using a PowerPoint slide. Instead, using a flip chart. Now, I've got the flip chart here, but you don't have to use a flip chart. You could be using any sort of prop. I've done presentations where I've used people as props in the presentation, and they have to stand up and they pretend to be a certain person, or they pretend to be a building, or they pretend to be an animal in the jungle. I do a lot of presentations about forests. And so, you can use all sorts of props. But I find that a flip chart is a pretty good prop, particularly obviously in smaller rooms. If you're in a grand presentation, a grand theatre, then these can be a bit too small for the people at the back. But if you're in a room, a typical lecture room, these can be really powerful. And what's really cool about them is that you can draw. And not only that you can draw in lots of different colours, okay? And of course, who doesn't love watching a drawing unfold? Now, the fact of the matter is I'm a pretty rubbish drawer, but it doesn't matter because what I'm doing here, all of the things we talked in the earlier presentation around engaging with the audience, I'm looking at you. I'm looking at you guys as the audience. And I could be casting my eye out around the room, looking at all sorts of people, but I'm bringing them in to focus here. And this is my sort of palette for introducing you to my subject. Okay, so my subject today, come over here, my subject today, and I'm a right-hander, okay, so I've got to be on this side, is deforestation. Now, we're not going to do the whole presentation, but you can put it up here. And so just by saying, Sam, my presentation today is about deforestation, okay? So you know what it's about already, right?
Yeah.
And I've drawn it up there. Now, I could have a PowerPoint slide, but, I mean, did you find it intriguing as I'm sitting there writing? Did you find yourself saying, what is writing? Did you find that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you've already got them. So I'm sitting here saying, I'm going to talk to you about deforestation today. And what I'm particularly going to talk to you about is a supply chain. Now, some of you guys might not necessarily know what a supply chain is, but it's how we get raw materials from far off places into the products that we buy. So, for example, palm oil is in a lot of ingredients. A lot of people would have heard about palm oil. It's in a lot of food, a lot of cosmetics. But how does it reach us? When we open a chocolate bar or we put some cream on our face, it's got palm oil in there. How does it reach us? Well, it reaches us through global supply chains. Now, I could stand here and say, well, we have this farmer here, we have that forest over there, and it goes to this mill over here, and then it goes to the refinery over there. You're sort of there, you're sort of with me, but you're a bit lost, I reckon. And so what I like to do, multiple colours, is to do a drawing. So, can you see down here, Sam? So here we have a forest, okay? So what happens with forests is that they get, unfortunately, they get cut down. The forests get cut down, and this is why we're talking about deforestation. And what happens is they get replaced with palm plantations, okay? Oil palm plantations, particularly in Indonesia, particularly in Malaysia. That's where the most of the oil palm plantations are, but they're also in Latin America, and also in Africa, okay, tropical. And so we've got palm oil plantations. So you're with me? You see, you're sort of looking at there, aren't you? You're engaged. What's he going to draw next? And the palm fruits go into what's called a mill. And you can see I'm a pretty rubbish drawer, but it doesn't matter because you're with me, right? We've got a mill. And the mill pays to the palm oil plantation some money. In the middle of that, we can have traders and middlemen. Now, the mill then sends the oil. So here now is the oil. The oil's been taken from the fruit, and it goes to a big refinery, and they pay money. Again, you've got traders and middlemen. And then the refinery sent it to, I don't know what you call these guys. I just call them brands. So this could, for example, be Nestle, or it could be Ferrero. Nestle make Kit Kat, and they use palm oil. Ferrero make Nutella, and they use palm oil. So it could be a brand, one of those. And they've got a factory, and they pay money for the palm oil. And then they send it on to supermarkets. Okay, and then they sell it. We've run out of space here. And this is another lesson here. Keep your keep your drawing within the boundaries, sell it to consumers, okay? So the supply chain is like this. Now, straight away, we're not going to go on more about the actual thing. I just wanted to use that as an example to show you how I've done a drawing. And I don't know how you found that, but mostly people tell me, what did you find, Sam? Was that engaging?
Yeah, it keeps you on board the whole time. Yeah.
Keeps you on board, right? Because you say, what's he going to draw next? And what's he talking about? And the thing is, I'm standing over here drawing. So I'm looking at this. Who remembers when you were a kid some of those shows where someone was drawing something? We had it in Australia. I know in the UK and the US, and everyone's watching. Okay, what's the person going to draw next? And I'm talking about it, but as I'm talking about it, I'm not standing here like that with my back to you. I'm engaging. So I wanted to tell you about the refinery, and then I wanted to tell you about the brands. But I'm looking at you. I'm looking at the audience. I'm engaging with you, and you're with me. Okay, so I've already covered the most important thing is this, and now I can start saying, well, what happens in here? Well, here, you might have the government of Indonesia, okay? And here, the mill was probably in Indonesia as well, but the refinery might be in Singapore. And the brands are all around the world, Nestle, and then supermarkets are all over the world too. So here, we've got 8 billion people consuming palm oil from Indonesia. But you've got all these different things. So you might have a government here in Singapore, you've got the government of Indonesia, you've got communities out here, mum and dad, people living out there working. You've got workers in the palm oil plantations. You've got, I can start using different colours because colour of movement is fantastic. We've got banks, and the banks give money to the supermarkets, to the brands, to the refineries, to the mills, to the palm oil plantations. Okay, we've got, who else have we got? We'll put it in green. We've got the environmental movement. We've got NGOs like Greenpeace. They're worried about palm oil. So they talk to the people here, they give the brands a hard time, they make videos, they give them a hard time, they talk to supermarkets. Out here, there's local NGOs who work with the palm oil guys, the governments. So suddenly I'm making this picture, of course. And what I wanted to get across right at the start is that it's really complex and it's a real mess. It looks like a mess, doesn't it? Right? Now imagine me trying to, and I have done this, I have in auditorium, bigger auditorium, where you can't really do something like this because you've got maybe 300 people in there. Can't really do a drawing like this. You can, I've done it, but mostly the people up there can't see it. So you can do this on a PowerPoint slide as well. But it's nowhere near as fun, it's nowhere near as engaging. What's really great if you've got technology where you can actually draw it at the same time and it goes up on a big screen. And if you've got that, brilliant. But a lot of lecture halls don't have that, of course. So in a smaller lecture hall, using a flip chart, in a bigger lecture hall, if they've got one of those great technologies where you can actually draw it, this is brilliant. And it gets you away from the PowerPoint presentation. And I don't know, I find myself, really much more engaged when I'm talking to you because I love doing the drawing. Right? So as a speaker, I've got you more engaged. And I'm talking you through this complex message as I go. So I've got you with me. You're travelling this journey with me. Okay? So that's just a quick presentation. We're not going to go into it in any much greater detail, but just something for you as you go and you develop your skills in presentations. Think about leaving the PowerPoint behind. And think about this, because one of the reasons people use PowerPoint is because they're not very confident around their messaging. And so they like to put the messaging up on the screen and they can just read it. Or even if they just put headlines, it reminds them of things to say. Well, this is a much more engaging way of doing that, because if you've even got headlines up there, it says, deforestation is bad in Indonesia. So everyone sits there looking at that. And they're not listening to what you've got to say. They're not listening. So you may as well just read the headline. But in this situation, I can say, okay, deforestation is a real problem in Indonesia, and I'm going to show you why. Because this is what's happening. They chop down the forest to grow the palm oil, and the palm oil ends up in supermarkets around the world. And when we buy a Kit Kat or one of these other products that's got palm oil in it, we may be linked to deforestation. And that's why the NGOs worked with the brands like Nestle to try and make sure that this doesn't happen. So suddenly we start getting everyone engaged. We're telling a story. We're looking at the audience. Do you see what I mean? How does that sound, Sam?
Great. Yeah, much better.
Much better, isn't it? Okay, so we're going to leave that there. It's just another short presentation that we wanted to give to try and inspire you to try this. Like, try it at home. Try it at home with your mum. And, sometimes I use things like, I've been in offices, I've been at tables where I use water bottles. And I say, here, this is a palm oil plantation. And then I might use something else. And you're sitting at a table. Here's the palm oil mill. and then you might get this, and here's the refinery. So you can just use props like this, and people are going, right, and they're watching and they're engaged. And because you're moving them around, you're engaged, and they get inspired to listen to you. So remember, the key thing about a good presentation is to inspire the audience to listen to your message, take it on board, and then go and take some action to make things better. That's what we're trying to do when we're using our presentation skills. We're trying to inspire people to change the world. Good luck.